Okay, welcome back to episode 3. This is called Start with One, and this is a series dedicated to helping you go from knowing nothing about building a website to being able to build your own personal website that you can take and put on any web server in the world, including a place like GitHub, which is free, and being able to hand someone a URL and say, if you go to this website, I built it, this is about me, and you can learn more about me, and it doesn't have anything to do with being connected to LinkedIn or any sort of social media profile. It just belongs to you. So this is a really powerful series, I believe, and there are so many uses for you to be able to build your own website so that you can communicate something to the world, literally to the world, only with a URL that you can then share in any sort of form or fashion that you want to share that. So we're starting our personal website. I have my name here. So if you've missed the first two videos, go back and watch video number 1 and 2, and we show you how to set up this basic structure for a website. This is essentially all that you need in order to build a website. And then right now we're going to focus here on this section. So you can see over here is our output from this page. So we've saved this page and it's in our folder that's called About Me, and this folder has an index page and it's index.html. So that's our basic page that's showing over here. You can see if I go down to here that it's index.html, and this is just being served from you can see it's just being served from the desktop, right? It's not actually on the web. So no one can see this but me and you, because I'm recording it, but no one can actually see this. I have to actually put it onto the web, some web server somewhere that's connected to the internet. But let's just work on the actual syntax, and then at some point I'll show you how to put this online so that you can show other people and that you can point other people to your website. So there are this is essentially a document, and you have to think about it like a document, because even though websites look fancy, if you stripped away all of the interaction where you touch things and stuff happens, or things are glowing or pulsing, or things have different colors, when you strip all that away, what you have is just a basic HTML website. So this is like if you took all the skin and the bones and the sinew off of a human being, what you would be left with is the bones. So the HTML is sort of the bones that everything else hangs on, the body. So in most documents we have paragraphs and we have headings. So if you think about a research document, or you think about a document you might make for work or an email, you normally have a heading, and headings are usually larger and bold, and then you also have paragraph text, which is just normal body copy. So the web is the same, HTML is the same, and we have lots of different ways that we can write headings, and the way that we write them is like this. We have our brackets, and then inside that we say H1, that's opening it, and then we need to close our H1 brackets. And then anything in here in between is going to be sort of supercharged by this H1. Now I'm going to show you all the different types of headings that we have. So let's do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are actually 6 headings that we have access to, and the browser actually has predefined styles for each of these, and I'll show you. So H1, H2, H3, and you can go along yourself, H4, H5, and H6. So we have six different types of headings that we can actually choose from. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this hello world, and I'm going to say Control X on a PC, Command X I believe on a Mac, but essentially you're just cutting it. You could also use the cut function, right? And what that does is it copies it and allows you to move it to a new place. So I'm going to say Control V, which pastes it, and now that goes to our H1. So if we save this, we've already saved it as index.html, so we don't have to do save as. We can just click save, which is Control S. You can see the shortcut there. So we save it, and then because it's already open in our browser, all we have to do is refresh or reload the page. So you click the refresh or reload icon, and now you can see that our hello world is way bigger and way bolder. That's because for the H1 style, you might think this is backwards, but heading 1, the heading 1 style is the largest style. The heading 2 is the next largest, heading 3, and so on, until you get to heading 6, which is our smallest. But it seems backwards, but think about it like this. If you're writing a paper, a research paper, so the web was made for researchers. That was the whole reason they made HTML and the World Wide Web, is so that they could share their research easily across the world with only one URL that referenced, and you didn't have to keep sending files all over the world, that kind of thing. You could put them in one place and all the people could access your set of files or your research, and then you could also link together the different pages of your research so that you could break it up in meaningful ways. So that's how the web actually came to be. It was created by a man, his name was Sir Tim Berners-Lee, and he wrote the original specification for HTML and put it out on the web, I think 1989, 1990, something like that was the first instance where the web was born. And so we have our H1, and this is essentially your primary headings for the document. And if you are writing a document, you might have a primary heading, and then you might have some secondary headings, and then heading 3 would be inside, sort of inside of the heading 2. So you think about it in sections of a research paper, and then your first heading makes sense. Heading number 1 is your main heading. Okay, so you can think about it that way. These are not case sensitive. It used to be very common to write these in capital letters, but the convention now is to write everything in lowercase. You'll find that it goes much faster if you write everything in lowercase. I'm not sure why we did uppercase before. Maybe just to separate it out from the text itself. But either way, if you write these in lowercase, except for this doc type needs to be uppercase, I believe. So if you write it like this, then it'll be a lot faster. So let's just take and let's copy our hello world statement, not cut it, but we're just going to copy and paste it at each of these different levels so that you can get a visual representation of the way that the browser interprets heading 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so I'm just going to do Control S, and that saves it. We don't get a lot of indication here, but you can just do it a couple times to make sure that it does save. And then when we come over here, we should have hello world written 6 different times. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Heading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and heading 6. And you can see that they get progressively smaller as we go along, just like headings in a paper would be, in a research paper, or in an email, or in a business proposal, or a paper that you would write. So each heading shows the importance in relation to the whole document. And that's why when Google looks at your web page, whatever is in the H1 is the most important information in the document. So if you want Google to see your website and to be able to index it properly, you have to write it properly. You have to code it properly over here. But you can see that these are all bold as compared to this. This is not bold. But these are all bold, but they are different sizes. Now, it's not beautiful, but it is responsive. I can't show it here, but HTML is responsive, which means that when the screen size is small, it'll wrap the text and do a lot of different things. So that if it's small, it looks good and it does the right thing. And you can also, if it's really big, if the screen size is really big, then it'll sort of adjust the text to the screen size. So we call that responsiveness. Does it respond to the size of this window in the browser? You can also see some other things. There's margin on top and bottom of each of these. So these are all things that the browser does for you. So it gives you space in between your headings. It gives you space in between the headings and the text. We're also going to make sure that we do our text, our paragraphs as well. And this is sort of the basics of headings. So let's move into paragraphs. So I'm going to get some paragraphs from a project that I that I run. It's called Meaningful Ipsum, and what it is just it's text that you can use for any of your design projects, or if you just need some filler text for something, then you can choose one of these famous stories, and it's just first chapters from these famous stories, so that you don't have to use something called lorem ipsum, which is an old Latin filler text that's been used for forever. But the beautiful part about this is, let's say you want quotes. We have some quotations and things like that that you can use. But let's just grab a couple of paragraphs here. I'm just going to do Control C, and I'll bring back our place over here. And if we want to go in and put, I'm just going to get rid of that. If we want to put a paragraph, let's say after this first heading, we want to put a paragraph in between there. So we have a heading, and then we have a paragraph of text, and maybe another heading and another paragraph of text. So we come in between our heading 1 and heading 2, and what this does is it puts this on one line, and then it drops down, and whatever is here it puts on another line. So let's just paste our text, and so now we have our text here, and this is not exactly how we want it to be. Let's save it. So you're going to see here that this is 2 paragraphs over here clearly, but it is only 1 paragraph over here. So we're running into the same situation we ran into in the first video, where we had hello world and my name is Brian. It was putting everything together. It wasn't putting any space between them like a paragraph or like 2 different lines, even though inside the HTML they were on different lines. Remember, I told you that HTML is it is independent of space, so it'll give you 1 space in between, like in between the words. But if you try, so let's see this one. So she was considering in her own mind. If we put a bunch of spaces here, I saved it, and let's refresh. You can see here that there's still only 1 space. But if I close up that space, save it again, you can see that it closes up that space. So if I give it more than 1 space, it just looks past that. It doesn't interpret more than 1 space. So that's just the way that HTML works. So when there's clearly more than 1 space in between these 2 right here, but it's only interpreting that as 1 space. So through our conversations, there's 1 space, and then it just keeps going, and it doesn't even make it a separate paragraph. So the way that we make paragraphs is with a special tag, and it's called the P, or paragraph tag. And so we do our braces, and then we have just the letter P. Now this is, remember, we have to close off our tag. So this is the opening tag, and then wherever you want the paragraph to end, which for us is here, then you have to put a closing tag. So it's /P. And now anything in between these two P's is going to be given special formatting as a paragraph. So let's just save that and we'll refresh. And now you can see that we have some special we have some special rendering here. It put a space there even though we didn't do anything here. So there's still the same amount of space here. It's just saying because you have a paragraph, we're going to put a little bit of space before the P and a little bit of space after the P. And that creates our paragraph break right here. And so if we do the same thing for this paragraph, we just say our opening P tag, and then we come down and we say our closing P tag, and then we save, and there might wind up being a little bit more space down here, so I just got to kind of watch that closely, and there really isn't because there was already some space, some margin here on this hello world, so it's not really going to do much there, but we could see it here. If we added another paragraph, we would be able to see it more clearly. Let's save and we'll refresh, and now you can see that we have our 3 paragraphs and they're clearly delineated by our paragraph opening and closing tags, right? And we can put a little space there. We can keep these things connected if you want, or you can put a space in between them, whatever's easier for you to read, because remember it's space agnostic, so it doesn't think about these spaces here. So if we save, nothing changes. So I refresh that and nothing changed. And nothing changed because it's not regarding these spaces. So it regards the tags, not the spaces. So however you want to write it, if you want to write it all together like this, you can do that. It sometimes makes it more difficult to read. And this is one of the reasons that we use the IDE editors, is because it actually gives different tags different colors and allows you to do some spacing things that makes it easier to sort of start from the top and work your way down reading the HTML. Like these tags would have a different color than this text, which would make it a lot easier to read it. But when you don't have that, you can just add spaces, or you could even, you could keep the paragraphs all together, but add spaces for the headings, however you want to do it, however it's easiest for you to read. Okay, let's just go ahead and I'll go ahead and end right there. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and end right there. So we have our headings. Those are not going to change. We can actually reuse those. So if you had, let's say you had a heading 1 and a heading 2 and a heading 3, and then you wanted to come back down after that and add another heading 1, you can actually do that in your document. And so let's save that and refresh, and you can see that we have our heading 1 paragraph, heading 2, heading 3, and then maybe you're starting a new idea, so that, or a new section of the document, and this would be another heading 1. And then you would go and you would do heading 2 if you had a subsection, heading 3, etc. You wouldn't go right to 4, 5, and 6 because those would be under heading 3 and heading 2. So this is sort of how you would make a basic HTML document using just text. And in the next video, I'll show you how to do some more advanced text types, things like ordered and unordered lists, and how to create things like breaks, like if you wanted to do breaks between so if you wanted to make sure that this stopped here and then came right down to another line, there's a way to put a break in between those two things in the code to make it break and do a hard break, like a carriage return down to the next line. So we'll work on that, but our document is already looking really good. And if you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below, or if you have any comments, feel free to leave those too. Hopefully this is helpful to you. If you did not see the first two videos, go back to video 1 and 2, and it'll help you if you're sort of lost in this third video. Okay, so the next video is going to be some more tags for doing other things than just paragraphs.